I think it also sort of ties back into a lot of general themes about life, like how do you live a meaningful life, and um, I like one thing that I this idea that I come back to is that like you sort of need something to strive for, like
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus said it. It's not how it's not about what's on the other side of the mountain, right? It's the climb.
Yeah.
It's the journey. These are things that are sort of like encoded into us that we know, but like we forget. It seems. Um, that's why I think I've mentioned this before, but like there's this idea in the early retirement space that you need something to retire to, not retire away. Like you're not retiring away from work to just like sit around. You need something to do with your time. Human beings want to be productive. Like there's something about us that needs that fulfillment in some way. Uh, like challenges to overcome. Um, so I don't know. It's something that I am constantly fighting against because it's very hard for me to be motivated sometimes to do things. But I do feel better at the end of the day when I've been productive and I've done things, even though in the moment I'm not necessarily enjoying it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very weird, I guess, part of the human condition. Uh, Something sort of intangible in a way. There's so another guy that maybe we'll get into sometime is psychology professor. His name's Jordan Peterson.
Oh,
Ever heard of
sure.
him?
Yeah.
Kind of some crossover with Jocko. Somewhat of a controversial figure, though I don't think most of his ideas are controversial necessarily. But anyway, he has this. I remember him giving an interview sometime and saying like what are you going to do? You're going to retire and then your plan is just you're just going to drink margaritas on the beach every day? It's like, hey, sounds great, but like how long can you do that? A month? Like maybe 6 months? Can you do that for 3 years? Can you do that for the rest of your life? Like can 20 years go by and that's your only experience in life? Like you just can't do that. You
Right.
need you need something more eventually. Um, Otherwise, now you don't need to, but like you can sort of be driven to insanity in a way, like you have no purpose. There's nothing to make you get out of bed. So I think about that stuff a lot because I am very often in that space where like I don't want to get out of bed, like
Yeah.
um, I don't know how to motivate necessarily, but I think that's the difference is there's this difference between motivation and discipline, right? Which is sort of what Jocko's talking about. Discipline is sort of, well, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it because I've built this discipline muscle, that I do things, I complete things, I see things through. Um, there's certainly a lot of themes there throughout life and career wise and really anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we had talked about the idea of flow and flow states. And there's a
Yeah.
book called Flow. I think we referenced that like maybe in our first podcast. But um yeah, just having a goal and working towards it, and like that deep focus and the meaning that it brings. And then when importantly, like when you reach that goal, then you set another goal, like maybe you're increasing the complexity. It's a more audacious goal in some way.
Mm.
And so then you've grown from working on the first goal, but now you've ratcheted up the complexity, so you once again get in that deep focus state, and you're working on that next goal. And so it's just kind of like a continual process.
Right.
um, and obviously, like, you can't do it all the time. Like, those deep flow states take a lot of energy and and discipline, I guess. So you have to have a balance. Like, you have time to rest and recuperate and everything. But
Hmm.
um, it definitely is a big part of meaning. And I think in that book, they're arguing there's evidence that is also what underpins happiness to some degree, is
Right.
like that meaning, and like, the benefits that you get from having those sort of flow states.
Yeah. Happiness ends up sort of being a byproduct.
Yeah.
Like
And
happiness isn't the goal in itself. It just happens by. living a meaningful life, sort of.
Right. Yeah. And also interestingly in that book is the argument that like drugs and, like, yeah, I guess really drugs, uh, uh, as way people use those as ways to seek happiness, and maybe it brings like temporary, bliss, or the feeling of happiness or whatever. But it also, those in part, they're doing that by decreasing your like your capacity to work or to think, or to whatever it is, and then so you're entering in flow states uh, in order to solve like problems that shouldn't require that much focus or concentration. So it's like you're like
Interesting.
you're able to shoot for lower goals but still like find meaning in them, because you've also decreased your capacity to work
Like
towards those goals.
intentionally stunting your potential, sort of.
Yeah, which is, yeah, interesting concept,
That's
but
I've never heard it put like that. That's really cool.
yeah. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a bit of a long read, and I think it's kind of repetitive and whatnot, but it's definitely it's definitely I found it really interesting to go through.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to get it on audiobook or something. The other place my brain is going is, I mean, I'm very into different video games, as you know, playing some with our younger brother as well, quite often. And just in the video game world, I think one of the reasons that it sort of resonates with me is because it provides an avenue for that experience. Possibly even like with the drug metaphor there, like it's lowering the bar to enable you to have that experience. But anyway, my point was, it's almost exclusively about the journey, at least in that context.
Yeah.
And the times when I've been doing some very difficult thing in a video game, or like striving for something over literally weeks or months, like trying to work towards a goal, and then sort of attaining the goal is kind of like almost a letdown, right? Because it's not really about attaining the goal. It's about trying to get there. Like that's the fun part, you know. That's the
Yep.
part that gets you excited about doing it. And there's been plenty of examples in different games over the years that I played where like you literally reach the goal and like turn it off, like never turn it back on. Like you get
Huh.
there and it's like I'm like there's not no other reason for me to do this, you know? Like I'm done with it. Like it's not exciting anymore. And kind of to your point about like it's sort of like on to the next challenge, you know, like what's the next one, what's the next thing that I can test myself or struggle against. um, so I don't know, it's definitely something that is part of the human condition, and you know you need to struggle, you need to strive, and you know, whether that be personally or professionally or both or whatever it is, it feels like a very important part of being a human being. It's
Yeah.
finding a way to engage with that idea of trying to overcome, right? To work towards that goal.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that you can kind of, to a degree, engineer the circumstances that can be conducive to flow states. So like games are really good with that, and part of that is there needs to be a timely element of feedback. Like
Mm.
you have to be able to, make an attempt, whatever it is, and then in a fairly short period, like get some feedback for whether that worked or whether it didn't, and then you can kind of modify and try again, and kind of keep iterating. Um, and so yeah, like if you're trying to if you have a goal, breaking up into steps where you can get more immediate feedback to like as you're working towards each of those steps.
Mm.